I'm a wild. What's up, guys? This is Uriah Faber.
What's up, guys? Stephen One Boy Thompson.
It's the IBF champion, Earl Smith Jr.
This is Cynthia Champion.
Hi, this is Michaela Mayer.
This is Derek the Black Beast Lewis.
This is Daniel Miracle Man Jacob. Shout out to Kendrick and Matt.
And you're listening to
the Slip and Dip podcast
With your boy Kendrick and Matt.
And you're listening to Kendrick and Matt on the Slip and Dip podcast.
What is up, people? Welcome back to the Slip and Dip podcast, episode number 57, coming at you on a Sunday evening on the heels of UFC Singapore. I finally got some rest. I'm rested up now. My time schedule is back on point. I tried to stay up and watch the whole thing on time.
Too old for that.
Too old for it. I had to tap out somewhere between the middle of the main card, but I made it through all the prelims. Anyways, episode 57 coming at you. I am Matthew Wells. Alongside me, as always, Kendrick Johnson. Holding it down. What's going on, my man?
Doing good. I defer to y'all people. I read and saw highlights so I could keep up what's going on. I'm glad I made the right decision not to try to stay up and be cool.
The fights were good. The pacing was awesome. Gotta love it.
Actually, watch the best women's boxer in the world, Carissa Shields, go through that stupid thing called adversity that people think is cool in combat sports. She got dropped. The first time I've seen in a long time somebody get dropped and know what happened. It's like, did that really just happen? Then she was more embarrassed than where am I at? And then she went on and win 9 of the next 10 rounds, and now she's a she's a 5-time world champion in 2 divisions, and she's only been in 6 fights.
Yeah.
And she said she's the greatest woman of all time.
Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't see the whole fight, but I did see the highlight of her getting dropped. And
it was a legit knockdown.
It was a legit knockdown, but it was that thing that you were saying. It was like what you were saying, though. It was like, oh, I can get knocked down. That's not going to happen again. And then she got back up and then just dominated the fight after that.
It goes to a legit theory that we say in combat, in MMA and boxing, the punches that you don't see are the ones that hit you. She didn't see it coming. That's when she got dropped.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get too far into this little intro that we have, this week we have Mr. James Lynch, one of the hardest working media members in the game on this episode. We run through everything martial arts, combat sports. We run through the whole gamut. And he's our only guest this week, and it's well worth the entire listen. So we go through everything from media experiences to challenges, fighters, interview, everything, upcoming fights, everything. So it's going to be a fantastic interview coming up with James here in just a second. Before Kendrick and him both head out to Las Vegas for International Fight Week. We do have one more show coming up before that, but we take a little preview of the things coming up and talk a lot about everything going on in the world of the game today. So.
Ready for that week. I'm already setting up stuff that week. I'm going to be doing UFC and the NBA because I'll be out there covering the NBA Summer League. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. And for y'all Mavericks fans, Luka will not be out there. He shouldn't be. Give that man a break so we can be ready when it counts.
Yeah.
He's not going to be out there. So It's going to be interesting being at the Thomas and Mack and then running up and down the strip. So I have no idea exactly what I'm going to be doing, but I'm going to be a busy brother.
Right. The hustle is real. I'll be watching from afar.
Cover more than one sports journalist, you get more than one paycheck. They pay 2 in the NBA. Real good. Just saying. Hashtag facts.
That's so true. So true, man. So, yeah, like I said, honestly, this week in the world of MMA, there's some local stuff going on. But UFC-wise, you got the Contender Series. Valentina's sister making her big opportunity to enter the UFC. So, Contender Series is hot, man. Contender Series is real hot. I love it. I love the concept. I love just the feel of a smaller venue. There's something special about it. The pacing is awesome.
In person, it's cool. On TV, does not seem cool to me. But the one I went to in person was like, dang, they going there. It's like everything you want a established fighter to do, the chances and stuff to take, they take club in their fights.
That's what's crazy.
I was there with Sean O'Malley when he made his debut. He was like, who's this curly haired dude whooping, just throwing on craziness? And then the whole John Jones thing broke out. So I won't ever forget my Contender Series debut. But it's way cooler in person than it is on TV.
Yeah, for me, I would think that the fighters have a little bit tougher time to adjust because it's like, hey, you're only fighting in front of 10 people and it's just as important.
No, it's about. We were there. It's about 75.
No, I'm obviously I'm embellishing a little bit, but in consideration,
it's not a stadium.
Yeah, it's not a stadium full of people.
I should say.
You're literally you can hear everything in there versus being a big crowd where it just kind of drowns out. If that one person started to heckle, you could call out exactly where that one voice came from, But you can hear them call out the shots and the 2, 3, 4, and I still understand why. You hear that in the arenas too, though, from the coaches, especially when you're sitting case side. You can hear that. no doubt.
But it's a lot easier to follow when you hear the echo. And what trips me out though is when you can hear when people get caught that and all those grunts.
Yeah.
So it's like if we hear that, we know that dude's here.
One thing I do kind of like is that in between rounds, like the coaches have to whisper.
Yeah, that's the opposite. Like they be talking crazy, man, crazy during the regular one.
Yeah.
No, it's like the dude's like right there. It's like he just got mute all of a sudden.
I think it was Javier Mendez. He was like he had a fighter on last week, and he was just like, "All right, you're doing a great job. Doing a great job. Let's work these angles." Like you literally have to whisper because you don't want them to hear. They're sitting right there and they can hear you, and it's just echoes. Like it echoes in there. It seems, but that's what it is, man. I love it. It's killing the Ultimate Fighter. Ultimate Fighter, just RIP. Just keep Contender Series forever.
He's hard to fight.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I will say this though. It sounds like you in the gym watching two dudes that we always hear about these gym wars. It's kind of you watching the gym wars, but you're watching them live.
Yeah, it's very different. It's very different though than that for sure. But
they're actually going hard though. They're not going like
I get what
spar
you mean.
pace.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like I've witnessed when guys get a little heated in sparring, like many times, and it's like, okay, you hit me a little bit too hard, I'm gonna hit you a little bit too hard, and then that kind of goes back and forth for a minute, and then all right, and then somebody's like, whoa.
Ain't no stepping in the Contender Series.
Yeah, because it's legit. It's legit. But yeah, I can kind of see your parallel there a little bit. But like I said, man, that's gonna be it for that huge opportunity for Valentina's sister. Julian Erosa gets another opportunity to get into the UFC. He's a guy that's been.
Did she fight Valentina's sister?
Huh?
Who's Valentina's sister fight?
Jamie Navarra is her name.
I don't know.
She's a U.S. fighter, 7-3. I don't know too much about her, honestly, but I will be. I'll be doing my research over the next couple of days to be prepared for that fight.
Are you gonna watch it? Are you gonna watch the Contender Series live, or are you gonna watch it when you?
I watch it. I'm at work, but I'm watching it live.
Okay, I was saying
every time because at work I get to have my headphones on and be. I get to have my headphones on and be in my own little world at my desk. But yeah, I've definitely got Fight Pass pulled up and I'm watching it live. I won't be live tweeting it, but I'll be watching live for sure.
You got any official predictions? I'll make mine later when we get James on. You got any official predictions for the main and co-main for 226, or are you gonna try to wait till next weekend?
Yeah, I'll wait till next week. We talked with it about James, like you said, and I'll hold out till next week before I give my official predictions. As you know, I like to give my predictions after I see all the fight week stuff. I want to see embedded. I want to see the weigh-ins. I want to see the.
We don't have it though.
Yeah, you will.
We won't see, but embedded. It won't be fight week. It'll be next week. Be the week before.
That's what I'm talking about. Like I don't want to give all those predictions until I see all that stuff. So, that's what it is. I don't like making my official picks. Like when I make my DraftKings lineup, I make my DraftKings lineup literally after weigh-ins. Like I want to see all that stuff. I want to see it all.
Yeah, but the heavyweight, the weigh-in ain't gonna be that's no controversy, man.
Yeah, but still, you kind of. I want to read body language. I want to read body language. I want to see the stare downs. I want to see how they're carrying themselves all week. I want to see if all that kind of stuff. It matters. All that stuff matters.
And the fight like Stipe and DC, I don't, because they've both been established. In Holloway, in T-City, it'll make a big difference. T-City, as good a fighter he is, have been on this stage. Stage make a big difference. People undervalue experience in championship settings. They look at experience like, oh, he's been fighting for 15 years. He was a champion in 2010. Like, you being a champion in your physical peak prime, you being on the stage, that mental thing, that goes a long way. That's why somebody like Tyron keep getting that hand raised. You say what you want to say about him. And still, because he has that mentality.
Sticks to the game plan. He knows the difference in the paychecks.
Yeah, that's so for T-City, we know what Max gonna bring, but I don't know about T-City.
Yeah, it's gonna be, like I said, we'll dive into it more next episode, man.
I'm hyped for that card though.
Yeah, it's a damn good card. The card before it too, the Ultimate Fighter 27 finale. Adesanya and Tavares is gonna be a good fight, and then of course all the fights that come out of the tough finale as well. So.
Yeah, I'm actually not gonna be like I'm doing NBA that day. I'm not gonna blow it off, but I will be there. I gotta go get that. But I mean, the top sit next to it because the Lakers play that night, so I'll be over there. So I won't watch the tough finale live, even though I'll be in Vegas, which would be weird because usually that'll be the first time I have not been to the tough finale when I've been in town. But I gotta go get that check.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for 226.
Yeah. Also, this weekend in particular, Bellator 201, we had Christina Williams, who'll be taking on Valerie Letourneau on the last episode, so she'll be on that card as well. It's a pretty good lineup for Bellator card. I
want to watch that fight because if she can get through Valerie, she may have some staying power. It's one of those things like is the young lioness ready to take on somebody with that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. But let's get into this. Let's get into our chat with James, man. Solid conversation. Before we get there, guys, give us a follow on the Twitters at Kendrick Johnso. If you're watching on YouTube, it's all on the screen right there for you. But at Kendrick Johnso, at Mr. M. Wells Art, at Slip and Dip Podcast, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us grow the show. These are free things. We're not asking for money from you people. We're just asking you to hit a subscribe button, hit a retweet, hit a like. Just help us grow the audience a little bit. That's all it is. And, we keep bringing good content for you guys. Great interviews. We got a solid lineup next week. Oh, boy. Next week's lineup is looking spicy. So you will not want to miss next week's episode. And it's gonna be a good one. I'll just say that. You might get a little controversial in here. But... we'll hold that for now, and till next week, man. Enjoy this interview with Mr. James Lynch. Like I said, one of the hardest working guys in the game today. He does, it seems like, 10 interviews a day. It's just amazing.
A legit stand-up guy, just great person.
Great dude, fun to hang out with when we're covering events, and at the same time understands he's there to get work done, so he gets the work done too. But that's what it is, people. Give us a like, give us a follows. Enjoy the show. We'll hit you back up next week for episode 58 before International Fight Week. And until then, peace. And joining us now on the Slip and Dip Podcast is one of the best guys in the MMA journalism side of the game, Mr. James Lynch of Sports Illustrated MMA, Flow Combat, and a few others that we all know. We all see your interviews, your one-on-one interviews that you do. Fantastic YouTube page. All names, big names, small names, guys climbing the ladder. The range is very vast, man. So first off, how's it going tonight, man?
It's going well, man. I'm so happy to be here. You guys know I'm a fan of the show, so it's great to be a part of this show tonight. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, James, one thing about your work, man, you catch the cats on the small circuit before they even get to the big circuit. Like me, I'll skim, I'll listen to a name, and if I hear that name from multiple people, I done heard this from James. I done heard this from Steve Warner, right? I need to focus on him. But you focus on the little guys, so when they get to the big show, we already know who they are.
Yeah, I've been doing that for years. I kind of made a choice of, how am I going to break into this thing? How am I going to get my niche? And, because as you guys know, it's so tough to break through in this industry. And for me, I decided early on, prospects, there's not a lot of coverage there as far as, the stuff that's going on outside the UFC and Bellator. And so I just ran with it. And the other thing I ran with, obviously, is video, which, you guys are doing, a lot of other people are starting to do. And it's you just don't see a lot of it. We can name a million MMA podcasts. How many video podcasts can you name? Not many, so I kind of just ran with that, and it's fun, you brought up, following people from the beginning of their career. Like Eric Anders is someone that I'll always remember. He headlined that card against Machida. I know he didn't win the fight, but I followed him since his second pro fight, and to me, he had that cool story about being an NCAA champion with Alabama in football, and then making that transition to MMA, and to see where he's gone is cool. It's cool to be a part of the journey when you get to interview these guys so early and see them be in a UFC main event.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no doubt. And I think with Eric in particular, man, he's really driving home that football to MMA. There's so many guys that we're seeing now, man, football seems to be like the most, obviously wrestling is the number one transition, it seems, but like football, just imagine, man, how many incredible athletes we'd have in MMA if football wasn't around,
It's true.
Or if MMA just paid better, put it that way. We'd have some incredible athletes.
For sure, and especially like with heavyweight. I mean, we've seen it. It just takes one punch to end a fight. Just saw Greg Hardy on Contender Series. It just goes to show that if you're athletic and you're a big guy, you can really break through here. Because if you're looking at heavyweight MMA as a whole, it's not that strong outside of the bigger promotions. So these guys that want to make that transition, if you're a heavyweight, I say go for it. We're seeing some success from some of these guys.
James, what do you think about for this to be the 25th year of the sport? Well, I don't want to say MMA, but of UFC and stuff. What do you think about the evolution? Because it's like the sport gonna look different 5 years from today. But one thing I have a problem with is people in our game, the media people, don't get mad over something like the whole Raquel Pennant and stuff when they're not getting mad at these damn trainers for not giving these people good advice. Like Ronda getting their ass beat completely by Holly Holm. Champ, you okay? Keep doing the same thing. But that happens a lot, just not on that big a scale, and nobody says nothing about that. So it's like, how do we evolve this game when it's between the lights, when the lights are on? Because it seems like some of these people be in training mode and they never click the switch.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to take more, unfortunately, situations like that for people to really wake up and really sort of come down in it. I know there was a lot of talk after the fight happened, but, what really came out of it, right? Like, we're still going to have people, doing these things. And I think, 25 years may seem like a long time, but you look at a lot of other sports that are out there that have been around for forever. It does take time to really refine things and find things that work and find things that don't. And I think MMA, as much as we'd like to think it has a long history, it really hasn't. So I think we're going to have to see more education and more situations. Unfortunately, I think more bad situations for people to really wake up and do something about it.
Yeah, the weight cutting thing, man. As well as I know, like that's one of the major things that I think we gotta figure out that issue soon.
No,
before
I agree.
Before it gets too late. But, we've had issues like you've seen smaller promotions, guys not making it through a weight cut, and that's like the most unfortunate thing ever. Like you're about to compete. Like, why are you pushing yourself to the brink of death for an inanimate object, hours before the fight? It just doesn't make any sense to me, man. And these guys think that they still can get in there and compete at their best ability. It just doesn't make any damn sense.
Well, and not just that, it just seems like they're like nobody knows what the answer is, and the people who are putting in answers, like Dana White saying we're going to move the weigh-ins back, like that's not going to solve anything. You're going to get people still trying to cut it like 30 pounds or whatever it is. I really think, and I've said this a couple times, I don't know what they would have to do, but USADA, man, if you're going to test these guys and checking their levels and everything like that, check their weight. If they're over a certain amount, you can't fight at that weight. I don't think there's any issue with that. If you test someone 3 months out and they're looking pretty heavy, you can step in and say, hey, you got to manage your weight a lot better as far as that goes. I think that could be part of it. But again, you're still, people's talking about weight classes. You're still going to get people trying to cut that extra weight. So there's a lot of things they need to do to fix that problem.
Don't you think it's just a lack of common sense? Because, as you know, I cover MMA and boxing. They don't have that in boxing. Or when somebody does, like, prime example, this weekend, Clarissa Shields, she's the best female fighter in the world. She cut down another weight class, therefore she lost more weight than she used to, and she got dropped for the first time. I don't think there's a big correlation in that. Like, because she's not used to cutting that weight. She probably didn't drain up like she usually is and big as she usually is, and she got caught. But she can't take that punch because she's not used to it. But the mentality's different in boxing. So I think it's more of a mentality and a common sense than putting in all these rules, because they don't have that in boxing. If a person does miss, like they're supposed to fight at 130, they might be 131 or something. It's not like, well, he's 137. Like, he just didn't try. Like you have it in MMA. You have that all the time.
Wouldn't part of that be education, though? I think, like we just talked about off the top, MMA has not been around that long. You have people from all over the world trying to do the sport, and maybe they're not educated in nutrition or whatever. I would think in boxing, you have people who are probably a little bit more educated in that, as far as, having the proper nutrition and all that, and just knowing where your limits are. I mean, Anthony Johnson couldn't fight at welterweight. We know that, right? Like, you've seen examples of that. But, you have a guy like Frankie Edgar, who through most of his career, he was fighting at 155 undersized, but he was doing well. So what does that say? I think it shows that there are, you don't have to cut all that weight to be successful.
Yeah, Frankie Edgar's my favorite one, man, because like that's a prime example. The guy didn't cut weight and he still is a champion in the sport. So it's just like it completely debunks this whole myth that like you have to drain yourself so you can have a grappling advantage and all this other crap. Like it's way overblown, man, because these guys are training when they're training in their training camps for 6 to 8 weeks. They're not worried about how much their training partner is weighing. They're going in there, give me 5 rounds or whatever it is, just switching out partners. Guys are the weights all over the place. You're having success. You're having like all of a sudden though, when it's time to compete, hey, you got to cut 30 pounds so you can have this advantage on the fight night. I don't care if you were in there, you're a welterweight training with light heavyweights all camp. You got to cut this weight for fight night. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I hope it's something that gets, like you were saying, moving back to the evening is not going to be solving anything. If those are the only 2 options, then yes, absolutely keep the morning weigh-ins. But you can do things. I mean, take a page from the wrestling playbook, do 1 championship sort of thing. Like I'm not averse to doing like same day weigh-ins, but you got to completely revamp the system, like and do more hydration testing throughout the weeks, and maybe even further back than that. I don't know. You know,
It's interesting. And you know, the argument I hear a lot too is that, you know, you're going to be the better fighter if you step in there, if you're bigger or whatever. But Matt, you and I were at UFC 206, you know, Anthony Pettis missed weight. I mean, would that fight have not been better if you know, him and Holloway were at a certain weight and they fought at the best of their abilities? Like, I'm sure Pettis, because of what happened, knowing that he couldn't win the title, we didn't see the best Anthony Pettis in that fight. So it's like, you're not like, what he did was the opposite. He thought he was getting an advantage by going down to 45. But the reality is we saw a worse version of him fight Max Holloway. And that fight kind of got ruined for everyone. And, you know, Pettis obviously lost.
Exactly. It's kind of like, okay, if a guy is struggling to make this weight cut, like absolutely just draining themselves so hard, and it seems to me like, okay, on fight night, you're telling your opponent, guess what? You already have an advantage over me because I struggled so much on this scale. I'm going to go work the body a lot earlier in the fight. And I mean, that's kind of what Max did in a way. I'm not saying that was his strategy, but that's how we got Pettis out of there. Body shots, man. You know,
it's true.
It's just one of those things, man. I hope we find answers to it very soon. At least try something. You don't just be like, nah, nothing's working. Let's just leave it how it is. You know, that doesn't work for anything.
Or listen to the fighters. Like Dana White saying that the fighters want them in the evening, but I mean, look on social media, and I don't think that's, you know, people saying that's not a good sample size. It is. I've seen plenty of fighters, and they've done polls.
Matt, what's your survey say? What's your survey say?
I have still yet to find a single one. James, have you found a single one that wants?
No, I haven't found a single fighter. Yeah.
So. Where they at though? I don't
exactly.
know.
Yeah. I don't know. And or at the very least, give them the option. If they want to weigh in the morning, let them weigh in. If they want to weigh in at night, let them weigh in. Like I thought that's what they initially were going to do, and then they just said no, it's morning or nothing, and you know, if you miss, you miss, or whatever. So it's but I think they've got a, you know, perfect example. You know, when they do that summit, I don't know if they do it every year where they get all the fighters together, get their feedback on that, write the notes down, and come up with something, because the fighters are the ones they should be listening to. It's like they're making these decisions without really talking to the fighters who, guess what, need to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
That's what's curious of stuff we talk about. Let's talk about this big card 226. I'll be there, but I will actually be doing a little bit different. Because I'm coming to the WMA, the NBA Summer League. So I'll be going back and forth from UFC. So you'll see me up in hotels and everything. I'll be popping up everywhere.
Good. Well, I'll be looking for you, man, because I'm going to be there too.
But
so
I'll actually fight for once. I'm skipping out on that. I'll be somewhere with one of the fighters watching it. But to me, the big question about this, everybody come on Stipe, DC, but will DC be considered the GOAT if he win? Because his resume is up it. To me, he'll be considered top 3. Because people can only say the John Jones knockout loss. Say this is you and that school, it don't count. He still lost one time straight up to him.
That's true. Yeah, I think, you know, for sure this is a huge fight for DC. I mean, it would really, you know, that whole John Jones thing is just a mess. Just to even look back on history, and because you don't know what to believe at this point. But certainly a win here would do that. You know, I've seen people say it wouldn't. It's like, come on, like, what does this guy have to do? He's beat everyone in his division. Like he's essentially cleaned up the light heavyweight division at this point. So this was the right fight. And you know, if he does end up pulling this off, you know, to me he's. I hate talking the greatest of all time, because, you know, you got to look at eras and fighters and times and all that. It's kind of difficult, but I mean, you have to put him in that conversation regardless. I don't want to rank him, but you know, he would be up there for sure.
Yeah, it would be tough to choose. I mean, you know, John Jones's reaction on Twitter the other day pretty much said it all. Right. For those that didn't see it, you know, somebody said something about would DC be the GOAT. I think it was a UFC tweet officially. And then John Jones said something, well, does that make me that mother effing man? You know, if that's the case.
But the thing is, though, if you want to look at it from a technical standpoint, everybody that you can remotely consider has PED cloud, as they say in baseball. I know it's a different sport around them, because except for DC.
Yeah,
you really look at
true.
it. So that's why he have a legit claim, even though he lost to John Jones, but he has no PED remotely, any cloudy history remotely associated with him.
Well, George St. Pierre hasn't either. Let's be clear about that.
But he's been in rumors, though. You know,
hey, listen, hey, was there any proof?
That's clout. You know, there's a clout, though.
You're talking about my Canadian guy over here. Come on, bring me on the show here. You're talking.
I didn't say he did it, but I'm saying there's a clout, though. There's a cloud.
I know. I'm giving you a hard time. No, I've heard those same things. I agree with you. I was joking around with you there, but it's one of those things though. That's what I mean. Like, who knows at this point? Who knows? I mean, with the amount of I think when we first saw the drug testing come in, I don't think anyone expected these many fighters to test positive. It's crazy to see the amount of fighters that are coming out. Like guys like a Gilbert Melendez. Who the hell would think that he would ever? John Fitch. Like, there's so many guys that just you wouldn't think, and sure enough, they test positive. So, I think we got to put an asterisk on a lot of people. I mean, it's crazy to think,
But I think some people, like Anderson Silva, was taking them to kind of like how Barry Bonds took them. Barry Bonds took them to, I know I'm better than this guy. He's doing this. He did it to keep his distance that he had in talent. Someone like that. So I know exactly what you're saying, because from all the stuff I heard, almost everybody was taking in that era, but some people were taking it for certain reasons.
Right. And the other thing is too, what I heard for GSP anyways was the recovery thing, because he had a lot of injuries, and you wonder if that played a role in him getting back faster. Maybe there's pressure from the UFC. Hey, we need you back. He was a big star for them at the time. So I don't know. Again, nothing confirmed, nothing true. I don't want any tweets coming at me being like, you said this, whatever. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, word around the campfire. You gotta look at those things too. So it's that whole era, man. The back then, even we'll go back 5-10 years ago. There's a lot of question marks at this point, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, it is what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, just do a side by side of Vitor now and Vitor just a couple of years ago.
Oh God,
yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, man, that's another thing. That's another thing, man. At least USADA is making change in the sport. It's changing at least that aspect of it. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some people that are still trying to circumvent the system and whatnot, but look at all the avenues and all the hoops that they have to jump through just to make sure that they're not drug testing. You can implement some of those things for weight cutting. Yeah. I mean, like, hey,
exactly. 5
a.m. knock on your door. Yeah, fighters are going to be pissed, but guess what? It's to help keep you guys safe from other guys that are cheating, and it's to help, have pure competition, because that's what we're trying to have at the end of the day. I mean, obviously, like, some of the matchmaking might not make the most sense at all times, but you want the competition to be as pure as possible in a sport like this, right?
And just, to kind of play off that, I mean, you want the UFC to be as clean as it can, because you're trying to treat this as a real league. If you want a real entertainment, organization, if Rizin, if guys want to go to Japan and, juice themselves up, go for it. That's more of an entertainment-based promotion, I would say, than the UFC. And I don't have an issue with that if guys want to go and do that and go over there. But for the UFC, you're trying to be the premier #1 organization. You got to clean up the sport. And I think they've done a good job of that, weeding people out. And, they've made some mistakes. We just saw this week the whole Josh Barnett, incident where he had a tainted supplement and he was out for so long. They've made some mistakes here, but I'd say overall they've done a lot of good in the sense that we're finding the guys that aren't cutting any corners, and we're really seeing some positive changes in the sport.
Hey, that might be James. Were you in? Were you at Mayweather McGregor? Were you?
No, I was not. I was at the press tour that they had here, but I was not at the actual fight because my son was being born. I had a good excuse for that one. So
pretty good excuse.
Yeah, well, because one thing that people don't realize, they still not with the whole John Jones thing, because we were out there for Mayweather McGregor, and then we're watching the Contender. I'm like, cool, I'm at the Ultimate Fighting House and see the Contender live, and then I'm like literally behind Dana White, and he's like, holy shit. He steps out in the middle of filming. So I knew something was up, and we got the phone call that John Jones had tested positive.
Oh, wow.
What people don't realize is they got Nowitzki. I don't know if he was in there or they got him in there, but him and Dana White talked to us, and he's like, these tests are 99.9% with no certainty, and we don't cut corners. We don't care who you are, you John Jones or Joe Blow. People don't realize they have not came out and said that he tested positive for that whole stuff. If you want to look at it from a technical, there's a reason. There's something. It's been almost a whole year, and they have not said anything about that test. Have you noticed that? And nobody in the media is talking about that. Because, remember when he failed last time? He'd already been to court and all that stuff. They just said, we're going to reevaluate it. So it's like, what is up with that? And nobody's really talking about that situation. Because
there is politics. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I mean, we've definitely seen some situations. Look at Brock Lesnar getting to fight at UFC 200, and they just, hey, no one will notice. And then obviously it comes out later, and then you've got the whole Mark Hunt thing with that.
Without a suspension. Not even a year. Because he's not in the testing pool. So I don't know how they would do that if he would have come back for another one-off. How they gonna play a ton of players? But that's the problem to me with UFC is they try to cut corners. I mean, they want to say it's a legit sport. Like, unlike a lot of people in the media, and man, no, I say this multiple times, I cover multiple sports. Like I said, I'm going to NBA Summer League. I cover the NFL. And it's pretty cut and dry, other than, like, you got Commissioner Goodell hating on Cowboys and African-American athletes. That's a whole other subject. It's pretty, you know what you're signing up for. So the UFC, it's kind of like you don't. So it's very frustrating because, like, how's the sport going to grow when y'all cutting corners? Even like us with the media. Like, I think it's crazy that you can have the same rules at UFC 220 and you bust up to UFC 223 because it's in New York. Oh, you can't do this and this, but you did it at UFC 220.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like, we are in a bubble in a sense with a lot of the coverage. You know, people don't really look at other sports. Like, there's certain things that happen in MMA that if we're in other sports,
like, you get kicked out.
Front page. Exactly. So it's we often forget that sometimes, and you know, it's a like there's no rules. I mean, that's really, if you want to be a journalist in this industry, there's no rules that say you have to go to journalism school or anything like that. If you want to cover the NFL, I mean, you probably have to go to get some schooling or get some sort of, you know, background. But it's, you know what I mean? It's kind of the Wild West, and there's good in that and there's bad in it. But but I think it all ties together, and you know, the accountability, like you said, like, you know, realistically, what is the media going to do anyways? If they did call it out, you know, UFC could say, well, we'll take away your credentials. They can't do anything.
That's really the thing, man. That's really the thing. A lot of concern with a lot of these guys that cover MMA is that they don't want to be, you know, too much investigative journalism, you know, because it's like, hey, we've seen examples in the past where they will take your credentials away and you will not get them back. So some guys have that fear of wanting to do, like, they don't want to dig too much. They don't want to, you know, have this quote unquote negative news come out where it's like, hey, this is actually important stuff that we probably be shining a light on. I mean, you know, we personally, like, I think we can all relate that we prefer to just talk to the fighters, you know, and let them tell their stories and let other people handle all the other stuff. You know, you got guys that are more versed in, like, sports law, combat law, and stuff like that. I mean, hey, that's the real thing. You know, that they should, you know, have those avenues because they can speak to more things, more technical things, you know, actual laws and how the rules are written and all sorts of things like that. Me personally, I prefer to hear what the fighters are going through. You know, I think
exactly. I'm the same way, and just keep it simple. And for me, it's like I want to hear their stories, and I want to hear, you know, all the stuff that I'm sure a lot of other people want to hear. I keep it simple, but you know, I don't envy those people who have to do the digging and bringing up the, you know, the news and stuff, because it's tough. You know, it is, like I said, it's the Wild West. So I mean, you know, just we've seen a lot of examples where, you know, journalists have been banned. There's, you know, Bloody Elbow's still banned. They're a huge outlet, and they're still not accredited to events. So.
That's one of the outlets that does a lot of investigative journalism. It's it's important stuff. It's really important stuff, and I'm glad that they're doing it. But they should absolutely have access to events if they want it.
James, what do you think about the accountability of stuff? Because, like, I'm interested for you. Like, do you cover multiple sports, or you just stay in the combat sports bubble?
I pretty much just stay in the combat sports bubble for the most part. You know, down the line we'll see, but for now it's just you know, stay in my lane and go hard at it. That's kind of my product.
That's cool, because like what you said, I laugh because, like, first of all, I've said it multiple times on the show, there's not that many African Americans in this industry, which is cool because it doesn't, quote unquote, reach out. But the people that are in this sport don't know how to deal with African Americans. Like, Matt knows. Me and Matt have relatives that are 10 times more aggressive than both of us combined, but we get labeled. It's crazy. Okay. And then, like you just said, like, it's a whole different thing when you cover other sports. 90% of the people that go to these fights, if they went to a Cowboy locker room or Los Angeles Lakers locker room, which yours surely has been to both, you get kicked out. You can't do this stuff. But then you do something that you do in those locker rooms, multi-billion-dollar organizations, and they say you can't do it. I think it's, what do you think how we do to evolve this media game? Or, like, here we go, I could go to the NBA Finals, I could go to the Super Bowl. You can have somebody from Sports Illustrated or a no-name outlet. They don't start the same press conference with the same person every time. Like, that's not believable. Does that bother you? That bothers me to the 10th degree. That's nothing personal. It's just, that's not a real sport. They don't do that in real sports.
Well, like I said too. I mean, like, there's no education. There's no standard. Like right now, like you see, like, it's, you know, to me, I think one of the things that we've seen, you know, we've all seen those journalists. There's been a few, you know, that are not working, or they're there just kind of, you know, fanning it up and all that. You know, like, I think that there's there, like I said, there's no standard. I know they try, the UFC does have policies when you cover events. I mean, that's certainly important. But like you said, there's no there's no like sort of rule book that you can sort of read. It's sort of, you have to know what's going on and all that. And we have the MMAJA, and hopefully, Matt, I know you're a part of that. I mean, that's something where you'd hope that's what that would become, is something where everyone's on the same page. And you mentioned the lack of African American journalists. Like, that might be something where, hey, if they, be more welcoming. I think people who cover the sport are a little bit crazy. I think we can all agree on that. Like, you have to really be a little bit crazy to cover this sport, because it's not for everyone.
You're right about that. Man, no, I used to let it get me fired up. Now I laugh because I got the 100% seal of what did you call it? Of sign off by Kobe Bryant. I've told multiple people, I know him on a personal level because I cover the fight. I kind of get that, yeah right. He shows up at the UFC, that last one at MSG, and he was doing the thing because he owns Body Armor. He's one of the major shareholders in it. So they have him up there. Hey, what's up, boy? I couldn't ask for a better shout out. Like, thanks for that sign off, Kobe. Oh, you really do talk to him? Like, I've been telling you ass that for 2 years, but I was just talking. So I like when them facts come out. As we say in the streets, those receipts.
Well, and it must be nice. We've talked about this before too, where like, you felt that you've been sort of disrespected, whether it's by managers or fighters that won't give you the time of day. But meanwhile, you're over, talking to Shaq in the NBA, like things like that, where it's like, that stuff happens. I still get that stuff where it's like, I have managers, like, I want a prelim fighter and it's a struggle to get, but I can get Stipe Miocic right now if I send a text message. It's not a big deal. Like, but that's what I mean. Like, there's no there's no rule book. It's just like everyone sort of goes for what they got to go with, and it's just like the sport is still evolving, the media game is very much evolving as well too.
Thanks for pointing that out there. I like you putting out them facts on the table.
Yeah, along those lines too. Like, even like trying to get credentialed, like for some of these local promotions, some of them trying to give you like the runaround. I'm like, bro, I was just at International Fight Week covering all 3 events last week. What are you talking about? You can't give me your credential. Like, what are you talking about right now? Like, come on, man. Like, I
have a good story for you guys. I'll tell you real quick. I had a situation recently where a manager, and I won't mention the manager of the fighter, but like just a fighter that was making their pro debut. I reached out to the management because you got to be professional about these things. I always say this to people. I do the industry podcast every Thursday. We try and figure out this media game as best as we can. But one of the things I always say, if you're going to do an interview, try and go the manager route first, just because it's more professional. So I went that route. I did that, and then I get the email back. This is for a pro fighter making their pro debut. Can I see some of your work? And it's like, really? Like I gave them my social media stuff so you can check it out, but like they really wanted to see like stuff to see if this is like going to benefit them. I'm like, I guarantee you're not getting any coverage at all. So it's
exactly. Flip it right back on them. Let me see some of their work.
James, I know what better. Because I like to deal with the fighters themselves. I develop relationships. That's how I deal with the NBA. That's how I can have a Shaq and Kobe call me up. So, Matt, particular for the podcast, he had a better relationship. So it's like, I produce it. Hey, man, go. Yeah, you set it up. And his guy's like, yeah, man, my manager, I really want to come on, but my manager don't know about y'all. I said, sir, man, just get your manager on there. All I did simply was pay the intro. When you hear the Deontay Wilders, you hear the Uriah Fabers, you hear the Demetrius Mighty Johnson, and this guy's a mid-level. He's not a nobody. He's definitely probably top 10 in the world, but his manager changed that tune by listening to that intro of Slipping Dip Podcast. And he came on the next week.
well, that's just it. I mean, you go through the manager route, nothing happens. Then I'll go the direct route. Even if I have the number, I'll still go that one route first, and then go the other route after. And I don't have an issue with that because some managers they're useless. To be honest, when it comes to emailing or getting back to you, like I'll send an email and then I'll get an email 2 weeks later, like oh, sorry, I missed your email. It's like, that's your job, dude. Like, you're supposed to coordinate all that stuff, So I've seen it all, as you guys know. So
it's wild, man. It's definitely some of the struggles, Hashtag media problems or whatever.
Yeah, media first world media problems.
First world media problems. There you go.
I'm glad you putting them facts out there, though. Appreciate you, James.
Of course, man. No.
So let's talk about some of these fights that happened recently. I mean, most recently, the biggest one, obviously, UFC Fight Night Singapore, headlined by Cerrone and Leon Edwards. Of course, Leon Edwards gets the nod. How did you have that fight scored?
Yeah, I scored that fight for Edwards. I know some people thought that it was, a little bit more competitive than what they thought, but I thought Edwards, he landed the better shots overall, throughout the 5 rounds. He just looked fresher. We find out after that Cerrone obviously had, an illness, almost pulled out of the fight. you wish the both guys were healthy. You could see sort of a true test. But I mean, this is the best case scenario for the UFC, because I think at this point with Donald Cowboy Cerrone, I don't even know what you do with him at this point, because he's not going to fight for a title anytime soon. And you've got Edwards, who's been on a roll. I think his only loss during his UFC tenure, well, he has 2 losses. He lost his debut, but the other loss was to Usman, who I think's top welterweight in the division, one of the top welterweights. And this was good for him. And I think Edwards, he did what he had to do. He got it done, and he took out a veteran in Cowboy. And someone suggested Cowboy should go to Bellator. I think that's a great idea, because I don't know what you do with him in the UFC now.
I think he's a gatekeeper.
He essentially is, but I mean, his star power is too big. Like, he can still headline these cards like this that come on at 5 o'clock in the morning across the globe. He can still be on those.
But you got to win fights, man. I think he's like 1-4. Sure. So I think it's a tougher sell as these fight goes on. To see a guy like this, like, he didn't get knocked out in this fight, but if he had a fight like he did against Darren Till where he's getting finished, then you got to start to be like, I don't know if that's such a good idea.
Yeah, and then I think that was a fight where he was just being like, too much of the Cowboy persona was like, I don't need to see who Darren Till is. I don't need to see how big this guy is. And then he finds out, he's like, holy shit, this guy's huge. And then he gets smothered out there. So, it's just one of those things. But I think he's a guy, man, he's always going to be around that. Like, his name is so familiar with everybody. And he goes out there and gives it his all every time. And he's fun to watch. Like, he doesn't have a boring fight. Like, I would definitely agree with you if he was like one of these older guys that just like goes out there and kind of goes through the motions. But like, you can't take breaks against Cowboy, like, at all.
No.
Like, Leon was like, fuck, this guy's still coming forward. Like, he's countering.
No, it wasn't an easy fight for him, but I mean, it definitely, it's just at this point, it's like, I don't know what you do with Cerrone. Like, you got to, I think at this point, it's these types of bookings. Give him the up and comer. You got to, if you can build a name off Cowboy, you're probably going in the right direction, right? So,
absolutely. James, what do you think about people talking about some of these older fighters fight these younger guys when this is a young man's game? It's not their fault that these dudes don't need to sit down. Like, sooner or later, getting looking up at them canvas and looking at them stars, that'll tell you need to hang it up. I don't feel bad. You sign up and you don't realize your time has passed. It's a young man's game. I've been saying that for the last year and a half. And
it's not only young men.
The older guy against the younger guy. The older guy needs to sit his old ass down. What needs to happen?
No, it's true, and I think you have to realize too, you're only as good as your last fight. I mean, this sport moves really quickly. You can be on a winning streak and lose 2 fights, and you're irrelevant. I mean, not irrelevant, but like, you're definitely you're not, the star power's gone. A lot of guys sort of have to be careful with their careers, but I think it's better to get out earlier than late. I mean, we see so many guys just trying to hang on, whether it's in the UFC or Bellator. It's like I know it's tough to sort of give it up. I'm definitely not a fighter, and I know it's really easy for me to sit here and say that, but just looking at this objectively, it never ends well for a lot of fighters. And you'd like to see. I'm not saying Cerrone's at that point yet, but there are a few fighters I think we could talk about that definitely need to take a step back and kind of reassess things.
For sure, that's absolutely true. What about OSP, man? He gets another very impressive submission win on the night against another huge guy with a lot of momentum coming through. Tyson Pedro is no easy out. And like, if you make it out of the first round with him, like, you're doing something amazing, And obviously OSP with another impressive submission, man. He's for me, for some reason, I don't know if you feel the same way, but when I think of OSP, for me, like, I feel that a lot of the fans don't view him as a submission specialist, but that's absolutely what he is. I still think he has this kind of like this aura that he's just a big black dude that's going to go out there and try to knock your head off. Where in reality is, like, you don't want to get on the canvas with this guy at all.
Yeah, I kind of actually disagree with that, because I think he's been known for those. You got the Von Flute choke a couple times in a row. So I think people are sort of coming to it. But my view on OSP is just he's so frustrating, because like, here's a guy who I've followed this guy's career dating back to Strikeforce, and he's done quite well. But it's just like those big fights he gets, he just seems to can't get over that hump. It's like he's stuck in this spot. He had, I think he was three fight win streak, and then he fights Latifi and he gets submitted in the first round. It's like, dude, come on. Like, I know Latifi's great, but it's like, that really hurts your stock, So I want OSP to like get to that level, and I'm still, I picked against him in this fight just because I'm like, I can't trust this guy. It's like every time he gets like every time you think he gets a matchup that he should win, he'll like lose, or he'll like lose like devastatingly. It's not even like he fights Jimmy Manua, remember back in 2016. Yes. Like, he got demoed in that fight, and it's one of those things where it's like, the guy's skilled, that he's very good. He's fought tough guys, but he'll have fights like this where it's kind of, kind of lackluster. And one of the things we got to talk about in this fight, OSP got the win, but he got tagged a few times in this fight. Early on, it looked like the side was going to the Aussie, but you can't mess with a guy like OSP on the ground, and he took care of business.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's in there against John Jones. Obviously, he had his arm broken in that fight, so he's been in there against the best guys in the world. But like you were saying,
it's just some dubs.
Exactly against those
That's
names.
That's why we have our segment, James. It's all fun and dandy, but you got a ball to get the call. He don't be balling all the time.
It's so true. So, was there anything else from Singapore that stood out to you, James?
Well, I think Peter Yan they're really big on. They gave him Ishihara, who's talk about momentum switching. Remember Ishihara was like people are like, wow, this guy could be something, and then he's lost like I don't know how many fights in a row now, but this was a clear setup fight for the UFC. Peter Yan's been for those who haven't kind of paid attention to him overseas, he's just been killing it. I mean, you look at his record 9-1 now. They brought him in. This was a fight to showcase Peter Yan, and Peter Yan looked great. For bantamweight, which is a division that at the top of the food chain, you've got some really exciting fights, but sort of on the lower end, you don't really know what's going on, and getting a guy like Peter Yan in there, I thought that was impressive. Jake Matthews got a nice win as well too. He was a guy that people were already sort of calling a bust early on, but he moves up to welterweight, gets new life there. I think he's 3-0 now since moving up to welterweight, and I think this was a good card. It wasn't a lot of finishes, which is always good, but again, this is a hardcore fans card. I mean, if you're getting up early to watch this card, you got some free time. As a dad, 5 years ago I'd be probably watching this card, but I'm a dad. I got to prioritize my time, so I watched it a bit later in the afternoon. But it was a good card, but nothing to write home about, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those cards, like you said,
it was a filler.
It was a hardcore fan stream. Like I tried to convince myself I was still young enough to stay up all night, pull them all nighter, and watch it. I fell asleep right around the Jessica Eye. Right before that fight, I woke up right at the end of the 5th round of Cerrone and Edwards. I was like, I tried to make it. I made it through all the prelims. But then I had to go back, rewind Fight Pass a few hours later, and watch the rest of the main card back. But I tried to make it. I tried to, and it just didn't happen. You can see on my Twitter timeline where it actually happens. I think I woke up for a few minutes right before OSP locked in that submission, and I sent out a tweet, and then I fell back asleep. So. Yeah, no, it's tough. But I mean, like I get it from the UFC's perspective. I know people are like, oh, this card sucks on paper or whatever, but the thing is, like, there will be people that will stay up and watch it. I mean, you have your hardcores who are dedicated to this. They're watching every fight, and I commend those people. But when you got life outside of the MMA bubble that's calling, and you got other things, like I had to go cover that event last night, so it's like, am I going to get up at 4:30 and I got to do that and then also take care of my son, and then I got to go, do this event, and which thankfully wasn't too late. But when you cover events, like Kendrick, you know what I'm talking about. You're there super late sometimes. You got to prioritize your time.
Even I covered the Errol Spence fight, which is 5 minutes from our house where the Cowboys practice at. It was local time and everything, and we still didn't get out, but till 11:30, he won in the first round.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had okay, boom, but just so much stuff happening, and the drug testing afterwards that people don't see, that we have to wait for the main event fighters and stuff like that. There's always a lot of variables. And have you been to any of them in New York?
I was sitting right beside you, 223. Don't you remember that?
223 was a blur, bro. Like I took some.
Speaking of falling asleep, you almost dozed off there. So.
I was out of it. Like it was a blur.
Did you ever make your train? I remember you were trying to get back. I
was asleep on a train like this with my Beats, bro. I was on so E.
I had to stay up my flight because those New York cards, I don't know what it is. Those pressers always finish so late.
I was telling Matt, you don't leave the ring at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I got in my car. Like I had a car pick me up or whatever. I got in that, went to the airport, went home. That was it.
Those are insanity. I will say this though. I keep telling Matt though. For some reason, that garden is the spot. I used to think it was a myth until the first time I went there for that Conor one. I was like, man, you just feel that energy. And then the second time, I was kind of different because the whole week was like, this ain't the same. I guess because Conor, you have the craziness. But Saturday at night, I walk through there, I'm like, some shit gonna go down. And then 3 hours later, 3 new champs, 3 ass whoopings. I was like, you got to go to the garden. It is that place.
Yeah, no, the New York cards are always fun. It's if it weren't for that crappy commission, it would be like the ideal spot. But it's
what you think about this? I keep telling Matt the proposed card. I'm getting people saying it's gonna happen is Khabib and Conor fight on that card, and then they're gonna have Tyron and Colby Covington be the co-main for 1 or 2 of the title events, and I haven't got the third one yet. They're working on it, but have you heard anything like that?
I've also heard that as well,
but
too.
They also keep saying though they're talking about putting Conor, which I think from a business standpoint it makes sense, putting Conor and Habib on that New Year's to get people to Vegas because, like we just said, New York's going to sell itself, so they don't have to put them on that card.
You know, I almost think you could put Woodley, and I don't know Woodley, you know, say what you want about his drawing power or whatever, but I think you could that could be a headline card in itself. I mean, you've got two polar opposite fans of fighters that it's rare to see that, really. I mean, you know, you look at the fans of Woodley, you look at the fans of Covington, like, you know, come on, you don't get that too often. I think that should headline itself because I think you could put Conor against a kangaroo and it's going to sell out. It doesn't matter.
Right.
That's so true. That's so true, man. Yeah, Conor's drawing power is ridiculous, man. You just put his name, it doesn't matter, like you said, against anybody.
It's Conor versus opponent. It doesn't matter.
It's pay-per-view. It's going to sell out no matter what. It's crazy. He draws like nobody's business, and I think obviously we all know why that is. I mean, he's got a whole country behind him. He came in, has the swag, gets the finishes that you need. You finish Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. The world is your oyster after that. And
he's the second biggest draw in combat sports history behind Mayweather, I think.
Yeah. And a big part of that, I think that, you know, people I'm sure recognize, but it's the fact that, you know, he's from Ireland too. Like that helps. Like you have to have George St. Pierre. He is Canada. You know, like these are things that help. Like you can't if you have a guy from Idaho, no offense, like it's not going to have the same effect, right?
In boxing, the same way you got Canelo, he got the whole country of Mexico.
Exactly.
That was a big thing because people in Dallas don't get the business of boxing. Like, why is Earl Spence fighting here, not the big house, AT&T? He has to fight a Mexican fighter with some Canelo drawing power for it to remotely work. That's the only way it's going to work. You have to have somebody that's a star, that's good, and has a whole country behind them to make them do a stadium event.
Yeah, no, it's a mix of everything, but it's so tough to like. Conor's self-promoted. I mean, it's not like the UFC has, you know, put him in good positions, but a lot of that's him. And these days, that's what, if you want a star, it's really tough to build one. You have to just have it. You have to have that it factor, as they say, right? So.
Did you hear this too? I've heard multiple people from the boxing and MMA side say he has to fight 2 more times at least for this whole, I don't call it a debt because it's built in that the hidden language in that contract for Mayweather. That's why the Mayweather fight went off. He has to fight in UFC 2 times because, since it would have been for them to let him fight Mayweather, make this money, he never comes back.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Until like we actually see footage of him actually putting his foot in the cage, I'll believe that he's fighting. But I don't know, man. I think, you know, it's like Conor's been put in first class when he goes to boxing, and now he's been put back and coached with the UFC. It's tough to go. It's tough when you're in first class to tell you go back to economy.
No doubt, man. One last note on this Singapore card that must be mentioned is the pacing. They hit this pacing on this card so perfectly. I'm talking like post-fight interview, 30 seconds, hey, here's the fight coming next, and the fighter is walking out. Amazing. They did that through the entire prelims. I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I want to be tired for this card, but I can't. They keep giving me the other fight. If this was a Fox card and they hit me with 15-minute breaks in between fights, I would have been out probably after the third fight in the prelims.
Yeah, that's another thing. They got to listen to their fans, you know, like that's a huge thing. Like you're going to turn people off when you're going back to the desk, you know, like over and over again. Like, you know, the people who watch a lot of these cards know what the heck's going on. I don't need Michael Bisping to tell me what the stylistic matchup is in the main event. I've been, you know, paying attention to that. A lot of fans are too. Like that's why these podcasts make money, because people are doing that on their own. I don't need to get Bisping to tell me that. Like they're really banking that the casual fan is like living in a cave, and then when they go watch the fight that they somehow haven't heard a breakdown before. It's like, get out of here. Get on with the fight.
That part I'll disagree just a little bit. I think you should do it for the main event and the co-main event only. Or if it's a 3 championship fight, okay, do it for all obviously all the title fights, you do it for that. Because there will be some super uber casual that some poor guy finally got his girlfriend to watch, and she has no idea who these guys are.
Yeah.
And you need that little video package to maybe let her cheer for somebody so she can get invested a little bit. Or he, you know, there's guys that get dragged into it all the time. I'm not trying to be sexist here, so don't come at me with that kind of stuff, people. But
I won't come at you.
I think you do need something like that for the marquee fights. You do need a little bit of build-up, because I think there is a little bit something lost when you have that quick pacing, that super quick pacing where it's like, all right, yeah, thanks, guys. All right, boom. And here comes the next guy's music. You do lose a little bit of something there because you don't really get to soak in what you just witnessed. If you just witnessed, like, literally the knockout of the night, and there's not maybe a kind of minute to kind of soak that in, you do lose that. And I think that's, that's kind of the trade-off, though. I'd rather have the quick pacing, but, you know, you're gonna.
There's got to be a happy medium though,
Yeah,
somewhere in
there's gotta be
between there,
something.
somewhere in between Matt's idea and not being, 7-hour event would be nice.
Absolutely, you got to dedicate your entire day to a UFC event when it's on Fox. So it's oh my god, it's so crazy.
Let's get to the fun stuff, James. Who you got in the two mains and co-mains in the showdown that we got coming up in a week and a half?
So I got Stipe in the main event. The reason is I just think that I think Stipe will be able to neutralize DC's wrestling as far as the takedowns and stuff. Now, listen, if DC gets that first takedown, people, by all means, at me as much as you want. But I think that Stipe really will be able to neutralize the wrestling. And just I think his speed and just the fact that he's such a mobile heavyweight and he's been there, he's got the experience. I like him a lot in this fight. And I think it's just a tough task for DC to fight a guy like Stipe, who, in my opinion, I think is the best heavyweight that we've seen. And then the co-main event, I'm going Max Holloway. Again, what it comes down to for me is just those different situations that he's been in. He's fought Conor. He's fought Aldo twice. He's finished Aldo twice. Ortega's been great, but Ortega's been in trouble in a few fights. There's fights that he pulled out at the last minute where he was losing, and I know he's gotten better, and I certainly proved that in the win over Frankie Edgar, but I got to go experience here. I mean, this is, it wouldn't surprise me if Ortega was able to pull it off, but at the same time, if we're picking this fight, if a gun in my head, I got to take Holloway just with the experience.
I agree with you 100% on Max. People don't understand that, and just ring generalship plays a big deal in these fights. And like for instance, on the female side, I keep telling everybody reason Cyborg is so good. It's not that she's lost a step or two compared to her like 3 or 4 years ago, but she knows how to cut off the ring and do the little things now that she's gotten older that makes it easier. On the going to the heavyweight side, I think DC just being with the whole John Jones. He has that confidence. I've been with the guy people think is the best in the world and went toe-to-toe. And the fact that he knows what it takes to win a heavyweight, I think people are sleeping on that. I think that's going to be just enough because he's going to make it a boring, dull fight, but he gets his hand raised. I'm all about the hand raise. I don't care about the entertainment. Like a lot of people want to boo and want to see a knock him, lock him, sock him. We don't see that. We're going to see a very technical, 2 high-level champions play chess. And I think it's going to be close in that 5th round. DC get a takedown late and secure a win. But it's going to be very close.
Yeah, man.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a tough fight to call for both of them. Me personally, I'm hoping for chaos. I want to see Anu both. It's nothing against the both champions. I honestly, like, you could tell me it's double Anu or double and still. I'm going to be happy either way because I love all 4 of these guys. They're all four fun to watch. They're all great guys. I'm not going to be. I'm kind of mad that it sucks that 2 of these guys have to lose. 2 of these guys are going to go home sad, and they're all amazing people. They're all great interviews. Stipe's kind of a tough. You got to pull a little bit out of Stipe sometimes, but he still gives you gems when he gives you good stuff. So it's amazing. The matchups are amazing. The entire card. Like I was looking at this like right before we came on air, man. I'm like, you can't. There's no bathroom break fights on this card. Not a single one. From top to bottom, they're all incredible matchups, and they're all going to be fights that are hard to pick. And it's just going to be one of those things that has me glued to the TV from Fight Pass all the way to the end of the pay-per-view. So
yeah, as it should be. It's International Fight Week. You got to deliver. I think in past couple of cards of there's been a few fights where it's kind of like you don't know, and they've had some issues obviously with like last year with the main event being taken away and things like that. So I think this year hopefully they can really knock it out of the park, and hopefully everything goes off as it's supposed to. But I'm pumped, man. I can't wait.
I hope we don't have any issues on the scale. To go back to the scale real quick, because there's only 10 fights on this card right now, so
right.
Maybe they'll slide in another early prelim or something. I doubt it. It's 2 weeks out now, but man, I hope we don't have any issues. Please, let's not have any issues.
Bubble wrap everyone and put them in quarantine or something.
Yes, please. Nothing crazy. No more. I don't want to see DC get that talk from Dana on Embedded.
Do the stomp.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Do the stomp. My favorite Embedded moment ever was that right there. When Dana sits down, Jones tested positive. Pow, pow, just the stomping of the feet, man. Like that's If you had to ask me my favorite Embedded moment, it's that one for sure. One of my favorite MMA moments outside of the cage too.
James, have you ever thought about how did Anderson Silva get cleared so fast? How we just talk about rules. Nobody's ever said anything. Like literally, I think like Matt said, that's the day I first saw. I remember Matthew Wells coming to my trajectory because we had hung out there the whole day. And then we had the crazy thing. They had a big shooting here in Dallas. So we were kind of like calling that family and stuff. And then, like, we're like, okay, this thing came crazy. And then that comes out or whatever. And then Anderson Silva just strolls in on a Wednesday. Like, yeah, he's fighting. He's like, when you take your test? Because I literally talked to somebody in his camp about him being there for fight week. They said, Anderson chilling in Brazil. He won't be back for 2 weeks. And I see him that night. So it's like, how the hell he take these tests and show up and fight on? And nobody's ever questioned that. Ever.
Yeah. They try to hit you, like, managers try to hit you with that, like, when they're, like, kind of on standby, not on, quote unquote on standby, you know, for like if something happens, hey, we need you in town. Like I remember for the Nate Diaz, I think it was Nate and Connor. No, it wasn't Nate and Connor, but it was one of those things where like one of the Diaz brothers were kind of like rumored like all week to like be in town, and people were like, no, they're not here, yada yada. And we had just left, I think, a media day. We had just left, me and Jim Edwards, we walk out, and we're looking online. Everybody's like, no, the Diaz brothers aren't even in town. They're in California, yada, yada. We walked right out of the MGM Grand. We run into both Nick and Nate at the Starbucks. And we're like, oh, what's
I remember
up?
that.
We're like, what's up, fellas? I thought you guys weren't supposed to be here, you know? So it's just like those kind of things. You know, if somebody tells you, oh, they're not going to really be here, good chance they might actually be there if they're rumored to be a replacement. So, you know. Just things like that.
You have to now with all the issues they've had. I mean, you have to have people on standby at this point. So
one thing,
like Tim Kennedy at UFC 205. Remember, he weighed in and everything.
Yeah.
For that for the middleweight fight. So UL Romero and Weidman.
I hope we get a clear answer on what Dana meant, because he was very cryptic when he was talking about Kelvin Gastelum. He was very cryptic, saying, you know, he's got some personal issues to work through. When he was asked about was Gastelum supposed to be like a replacement.
That's true.
Very, very cryptic. So one of you guys pose that question in 2 weeks. Let's see if we can let's see if we can dig a little deeper on that one.
I'll be under the radar. Like you'll see me in the streets of Vegas, but you won't see me in casinos unless you see my videos.
James, one thing. I see a lot of people on this. You know, when we have a lot of people criticize media, right? MMA media, they have their, you know, whatever they want to think MMA media actually is covering these events. But how many UFC events have you covered?
Yeah, you know, I was trying to add that up the other day. I think it's somewhere in the range of, I think it's like 15 events, something like that.
Around
the first event.
I'm at 29.
Okay.
Yeah, but here's where I've kind of gained a lot of those. This will be my third international fight week. So I did last year's one, and I did the year before. And the year before, if you remember, had 3 events. So that's one in 1 week. So that kind of got me a head start.
So out of all of those events, can you count on more than one hand how many times you've actually gotten an opportunity to speak to Dana White?
Oh, jeez. Actually, you know, I'll tell you one that I did have that was very rare. UFC it was Demetrius Johnson and Ali Bagotinov. That was the Vancouver card. Rory McDonald and Woodley was in the co-main event. They did the media day at the EA Sports studio. Out of nowhere, we're doing the media day. It was like there was like no media for that event for some reason. I can't remember. I think probably because DJ was headlining, so they're just like I don't know. It was like the media day just wasn't a huge turnout. And then out of nowhere, Dana White just strolls on in, and he did like a full scrum. And like I don't remember him doing something like that, you know, from that point. But yeah, as far as speaking to him, just at post-fight stuff, but no like scrums or anything.
Yeah, people have this misconception that Dana is like available all the time. And I see that so often on Twitter and social media.
Matt, like, I tell Matt, because
that's not how it goes.
It's not that, but here's the thing. I've caught him twice at boxing events and got 10-minute one-on-ones. It's like, man, I'm like thinking like, when will see one of these PR people come take him? It's crazy because when you talk to him one-on-one, he really knows the sport, which a lot of people think he don't. They think he's a character. The guy knows his stuff.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
But he's very personable, so it's like, why don't they let us see that when it's in the UFC realm? Because if that same thing happens at the UFC fight, it's like he gets some Trump security and gets yanked up out of there.
Yeah, the UFC's weird about stuff like that, though. I don't know if you guys remember. I told you that story at UFC 218. CM Punk was there cornering, or he was there for Paul Felder, who was on the card, and CM Punk was just sitting there by himself, and like they were doing a media scrum, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna try and get something with him. Like he never does any interviews. He's like, cool, UFC official, like a hawk comes in. Sorry, he's not doing any interviews. It's like he's not even on the card.
But how about this? He's a grown-ass person. Did he talk to you voluntarily? That's what I don't get. These are grown-ass people that voluntarily, like, James, you see me. I'm 6'5", 270. I can't blend in. And 98% of the people in the crowd don't look like me. But they act like I just popped the fuck up. It's crazy.
And yeah, and you know what's funny? We had a great conversation. Like, he's a hockey fan, and that's like the key to any Canadian's heart is talking some hockey. So we he's a Hawks fan. So we talked about that because I'm a Canucks fan. We hate the Hawks. They always kicked our ass in the playoffs. So it was a good conversation. But like, I couldn't that's what the interview was going to be. Mostly it was that, and it's like you won't even let me get that moment. So I mean, I get it from their perspective. They don't want him to say something out of whatever. But it's like for people to think that like, oh yeah, you can interview whoever you want. It's not the case sometimes.
Yeah, they'll give guys a gag order sometimes, and we most recently had one after our interview that we did that's pretty controversial on our channel. Everybody knows which one I'm talking about.
Yep.
It's still getting hit to this day.
Still getting a lot of crazy comments on it too. I mean, people expected us to just attack her. Like, that's not what an interview is. People, like, if we literally ask her questions, let her say her piece, you take what you want from it. It's not our place to go on there and judge you and make assumptions about what kind of person you are. Like, people need to understand that. So, that kind of thing, like, those are the people that we're talking about that would never make it in backstage at an MMA event.
Never. No.
They want to critique stuff. Like, I could just see some of these people, like, with the microphone. You're such and such.
It's because people want you to be how they are, and if you're not, they're gonna like find every way to like make you bow down. And I hate that stuff, man. Like, trying to just that's why when it comes to like politics and stuff, I leave that shit off Twitter as much as possible because like people they want you to be how they are, and if you're not doing it to like 100% like to a T, then they're gonna come after you. And the Twitter mob comes out, the purity police as they call it. It's like it's one of those things, man, where it's like you can't win.
It's definitely there's no win-win on that.
I keep it with the sport. Why don't people overlook this? I asked a lot of the top fighters this. I've done this at a press conference. Like, we were at I don't know if you were there, but at the Wonder Boy Woodley too. People are booing and stuff because neither one of them are getting hit. Why do people keep getting hit? It's cool. It's like the simple perspective of combat sports. The object is not to get hit and to hit the other person. And they get mad when people are not getting hit. I don't get it. It's like it makes so much sense that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's people that just don't understand the strategy of it. It's like people booing Damian Maier. They say he's boring or whatever. It's like the guy's a jiu-jitsu wizard. He's trying to work the submission. He can't get it. Like, it's not his fault. The guy had good submission defense. It's just there's people who just don't understand the sport, and they that's what it's just confusing sometimes to see the reaction that you get from certain fights.
Oh, for sure. That fight in particular was crazy. It wasn't just like the booing. It was the Bray Wyatt Fireflies. It was the wave. It was all sorts of shit I had never before or since seen at an MMA event. Like, they were just going crazy. And meanwhile, the entire time this is happening, I think like all that stuff started happening like in round 3. But meanwhile, you have two fighters very capable of ending the fight at a split second. And yet you guys are out in the crowd clowning your asses off. Meanwhile, while you're doing the wave, guess what? Stephen Thompson could have hit him with a head kick and the fight's over. Or Woodley could have caught him with a left hook coming in and the fight's over. Like, edge of your seat moment the entire time. For me, it's not a fight that I'm going to be like, hey, you got to watch this fight whenever you come over to watch fights with your boy, like to kick it on the weekend or something. But in the moment, like, how are you not just glued into that? Because these are both two guys that can just end the fight out of nowhere. And then you saw when I think it was in the 4th round, Woodley finally caught him with the punch and kind of stumbled, and then everybody, like, all of a sudden the waves turns to just like, yeah! Like, dude, like, okay, like, which one is it? Are you excited? Like, are you anticipating the moment, or are you trolling the moment? Like, I don't get fans sometimes. I really don't.
I was at 2 of Demetrius Johnson's fights where people walked out, like
crazy. Crazy.
So I guess I guess you have a right. You pay a ticket. You can do what you want with that ticket, whether it's boo or whatever. I get that, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like why are you here? I don't know.
It's madness. That's just madness. MMA fan. Hashtag MMA fans. I need some of you guys to do a little bit better. But yeah, man. Exciting times coming up, man. A lot of good stuff in the MMA world. International Fight Week's on deck. I'm sure you got what do you have coming through the pipeline in the next couple weeks before you head out?
Well, I'm still kind of figuring that out. I'm actually taking some time off. I'm going camping tomorrow, which is, again, very Canadian. I've made a lot of Canadian references on here. Camping is going to be another one. So I'm going away with my wife for a couple days, and then I'm going to do a couple interviews before I leave because I got to get those done. And then, the madness of International Fight Week, I'll be doing as much as I can, trying to do some hotel interviews, things like that, just trying to line some stuff up ahead of time. But yeah, I mean, these two cards, the Ultimate Fighter 27 finale and 226, I mean, I got like half the card for both of them. So like I've already interviewed like half the fighters. So I made sure I did that ahead of time just because I knew, because that's the thing. Like a lot of people don't realize this. When I go to these events, like, yeah, I'm getting all this UFC content and I'm doing it for one outlet, but I still got other outlets that need content. So I got to do that work ahead of time just to go cover this event. It's crazy. That's the life of a freelancer. I love it, not complaining one bit, but that's what I have to do. Like when I'm doing all these interviews, it's like, that's because I gotta make everything sort of even keel, right? So.
Absolutely. It's a hustle, man.
That's all, man. You hustles are right with us. Very few people I'll be like, man, they don't hustle as hard as I do, but hey, you on that short list for sure.
I appreciate that, man. No, I love doing it though.
Hey,
what's that?
Do multiple sports, then you really be doing it.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Down the line, I mean, because the thing is, I didn't actually like when I started in media. I actually was like, initially I wanted to go into doing hockey, but it's like it's so tough to break into that market. And I was just like, you know what, I love MMA. I'm going to go in this lane, and it worked out for the best. But like it's competitive, and I mean, there's other sports I still follow, but definitely MMA is the one that I have to sort of dedicate my time to. And then hockey, and then other sports I'm kind of like casually watching. Like I call myself like a casual boxing fan. I'm a casual NBA fan. I'm a casual football fan. But like the two ones, hockey and MMA, like both of them with fighting, obviously. So
yeah, your hockey's our football down here in Texas. Like I cover high school football, bro. These high school kids get national attention with stuff they do. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I know. I've seen what's that? Well, Friday Night Lights and all that stuff.
That
like
stuff
it's
is
like
real.
that.
And one of the school districts I cover, bro, they about to open up a $70 million stadium that's bigger than half college stadiums. No lie. High school.
They had that show on I hate to say that I watch a show on MTV, but they had that show a couple years ago with the kids. I forget what it was Alabama or something. The kids were. It was it was like high school football, and I couldn't believe it. They treated it like the NFL. It was crazy. We don't have that here.
It's times 10 here in Texas.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Like, some of these dudes can win a state title and go be an F up in college, and they got a job at that school district that they won a state title when they were 17 years old.
Yeah. It's just a different culture. Like we don't have anything like that down here. They didn't even have football in my high school when I was growing up.
No CFL dreams.
No playing for the Rough Riders, unfortunately. So, yeah.
No Johnny football.
No, it's a lot of the CFL guys, like actually, you want to put like a comparable, like CFL is kind of like the UFC. Like a lot of guys have to get jobs like in the off season because they don't pay, like unless you're like, top quarterback or whatever. But a lot of these guys have to have other jobs just to make ends meet. It's kind of very similar to the UFC in a way.
Yeah, that's so wild.
So there's another Canadian fact for the day.
Here, like with the NFL, you got dudes that make like $250,000 just for being on the practice squad. Like they don't play no games. They make $250,000 just practicing and working out.
And
it's true. You could be like the third string quarterback. You're going to make more than a starter in the CFL. It's crazy.
That just shows you how much money the NFL brings in. And it's just
well, a lot of that's TV too. Like in Canada, it's on. So CFL in Canada is on TSN, which is like the ESPN in Canada. So it does get a lot of coverage, but it's not the numbers. Just they aren't even comparable. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Well, man, James, we've done an hour, man. This flew by. Thank you. Thank you for the time, man. It's always fun talking sports, talking combat sports with you. Obviously, International Fight Week. Kendrick will be out there. I'll miss this one. I was at the previous two, but this one I'll be sitting out. Got a lot of stuff going on over here, but I'm looking forward to your coverage. Looking forward to Kendrick's coverage. It's going to be a hell of a fight week. And of course, all the people can find you at Lynch on Sports, your YouTube channel.
Also, Lynch on Sports?
Yes, at Lynch on Sports. Anything else you want to shout out for the people watching?
No, I just want to say, like I said, I'm a big fan of the show. It's awesome to be on. You guys ever want me on again, I will gladly accept. There's a lot of podcasts out there, but I pay attention to the ones I really like. You guys are doing a great job. I love how you guys are doing video. I love the range of guests, and you guys are getting different guests. I think that's something that we see the people trying to go after sort of the big names and stuff. You guys get really big names, but you also get kind of a variety, the coaches, all these other things. So from a fellow podcaster to another podcast, you guys are doing a great job, and keep it up. I really appreciate being on tonight, man.
Appreciate you, James. I will hit you up tomorrow so we can get a game plan, man. Like I said, I'm
believe
be man on the street in Vegas. You might see me at MGM. The next thing you know, you might see me at T-Mobile. You might see me at the Hooters on the street because everybody's gonna be everywhere that week. So I'm gonna be like roaming.
Yeah. No, it was good hanging out with you in New York too. It's man, there's never a dull moment with Kendrick, man. I tell you, if anybody gets a chance to meet Kendrick, you're one of a kind, man, in a good way. It's always cool catching up with you, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, me and James like literally doing interviews and like, hey, I'll hit you in 5 minutes, and I don't see him for like another to the next day because he's doing his day, and then we look up like, man, how many videos you did? 12? How many videos you got? 10? It's like you get like so locked in, you don't pay attention. Like I literally meant to see. I was gonna see you, and then I actually took the next day because I got so locked in on doing my stuff.
No, I know, man. It's busy, but I love it. Like, people say, oh, you're going to get burnt out. It's like, I love it. I space it out, man. I do as much as I can. And then, I take those breaks and I do it up. But you got to love, like I said, you got to be crazy. You got to love to do this if you want to, succeed at it. And, you're certainly that way too, Kendrick. Like you can tell the passion. Like it's the thing I like too, is that you get on the sort of a personal level, it's not like, hey, how was your training camp? Like you're very like, get on a different level, which is important. If people can learn a lot from your interviews because they're very like, it takes a skill to get on that level of where they're comfortable with you. And I think that's why you see so many people responding to you. It's great, man. So
appreciate it. Well, one thing that people don't understand is you have to do your research. Like I'll be on a random Tuesday watching a Lakers game, watching my Lakers get blown out with no defense playing asses, and I'll be doing research. So when I see such and such, I'll ask them like, "Oh, how'd you know about that?" Which you do good at doing your research. A lot of people don't understand. You have to do your research on these people.
Yeah, it's true. You got to know your stuff because there's not, and especially these events too, man. Like how many times it is sometimes you don't even get to watch the fight. They come out, you got to just sort of know stuff, and you got to talk on the fly. That's a skill in itself.
And don't freeze up when you get the mic, people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I get accused of starting stuff, and I just do my. I don't even be trying to. I can honestly say I don't be sitting there trying to start like the last press conference. I didn't know people were gonna get into it, but when you get them started, I'm not about to say nothing. I was like standing there for 3 minutes when our man Usman was going off on Kobe Covington. I didn't see that. I don't even know Kobe Covington, who we're gonna get on the show soon.
On that note as well. Once you get them started,
don't say nothing.
Don't interrupt them because that's what they want. That's what the UFC PR is hoping for. They are hoping that there's drama on those stages at those big press conferences. But just a last little tidbit. But James, man, we'll let you go, man. Thanks for the time, and let's catch up. Let's do a quick little, obviously we won't keep you for an hour after the fact, but let's get you back on and maybe talk a little bit of International Fight Week after the fact.
Anytime, man. Just hit me up. You guys know where to find me. I'm everywhere. So we'll definitely do something, guys. And Matt, when are you coming up to one of these cards, man? We got to hang out. We got to. I always tell people that 206 card. The card itself was not amazing, but we had a good week that week with all of us getting together. It was a good time.
It's tough now because I've got the full-time job now, so I don't grind as much as I used to covering the sport. But I got the podcast, do a little writing here and there. Getting out to events is tough, so I got to use the vacation time and stuff like that now. So
maybe I'll come down there. Maybe I got to come down your area. Maybe when they got a UFC event there, and we'll hang out then. So
let's
cool.
Get in the UFC's ear and next week. Say, hey, bring in a couple cars to Dallas, Houston area. I'll be at every one of those, no matter what. So we'll see, man. But man. Have a good evening, man. We'll talk to you soon. Safe travels to Vegas for International Fight Week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take it easy.